Good evening, everyone. I do hope you're having a good day. I'm doing good on my end. I am about to go out for a walk, but I just thought I'd touch base with you first on our Character 101 series. Today's Character 101 topic is dodgy discipline. Dodgy discipline. So we're going to get into that in a bit more detail. So the definition of character, as we've explored in previous episodes, is the complex of mental and ethical traits marking and often individualizing a person, group, or nation. Yeah. And discipline, one of the definitions that I found of discipline is as follows: the practice of training people to obey rules or code of behavior using punishments to correct disobedience. And punishment, just in case you don't know, is a penalty inflicted as retribution for an offense. That's a formal definition. But punishment is essentially the price that you pay for violating a rule or law. Yeah? Okay, so I'll start off with a story. So, sometime last year in October, my brother in Canada decided to stop by in the UK for a short holiday and to visit me, which was ever so sweet. So we spent time in London for a couple of days, just sort of touring London and just seeing the sights. So on this one particular occasion, we'd been out different places. And we'd used the tube, the underground in London. And we arrived at our final stop. Now everything went fine until we got to the final stop. At the final stop, the barriers were open, like it was just open, and I felt like I could just walk through without actually scanning my Oyster card on the card reader. And my brother, like he tried to oppose that decision, but I was like, it's open, so I don't need to scan it. So that was my very warped thinking at the time. So I just walked through, and that was it. Like we carried on with the evening. But then when I went to bed, I felt bad, and I was like, I felt bad. I felt convicted. I was like, I should do the right thing regardless of who's there. Like I should always do the right thing regardless of who's watching. So I woke up the following morning and I told my brother about it, and he very candidly said to me that he felt like I only felt bad because he had said something about it. I was like, no, I felt bad because, and I came to the decision that I should do the right thing regardless of who's there watching. And he nodded, and we carried on with the day, and we went to see some more sights that day. And then when it came to time for me to use the tube, I realized my Oyster card was missing. And I'd already used it earlier on that day, so I didn't know what happened. But I think we went to a cathedral and it must have dropped because I put it into my phone case. So I looked about for it frantically, and I retraced my steps. I couldn't find it. When I calmed down, I realized that this was punishment for my misdeed of the night before. So I smiled and graciously accepted my punishment because, in all honesty, I deserved it. So like I learned the lesson. I had my punishments, and I recognized it for what it was, and I learned the lesson. So that's an example of a time when I wasn't quite disciplined. I wasn't disciplined as it relates to integrity. So I felt like I could just do what I wanted because there was no one there to actually monitor my movement. But God issued His punishment for me because I felt like He was saying, you know better. If it were somebody else, I'd have let them off, but you know better, so you need to do better. So that's usually the rule of law. If you know better, do better. Yeah. So what areas should we be disciplined? Various areas of life. Discipline is required and such an important character trait. It's required in various areas of life, but I'll just cover some examples here. So, for me, time is my life's currency. It's my life's blood. And if I feel like you're wasting my time, it could be extremely frustrating. So, because time, like you can get most things back. You can get money back. You can lose your health and get it back. But once you've lost time, you're not going to get that back. So I like to use my time wisely and invest it properly. So that's really important. It's important that we invest our time in the areas of our lives that will give us the highest return. And that return that we're looking for might not necessarily be financial. So investing in loving relationships won't necessarily put money in your accounts. However, what it will do is give you that peace and contentment within yourself, which will contribute to your earning capabilities. So it's important that we invest our time wisely. Invest your time in loving relationships, invest your time in reading, studying, personal development, things like that. And downtime is and playtime is good to play as well. Like life, it's life is serious, but it's okay. It's okay to let down your guard and just have a good time, have a laugh, do things that are silly, unwind. So using your time wisely and putting things in perspective and making a plan so that you're able to cover the various aspects of your life is essential. Another area that we should be disciplined in is finances. Zig Ziglar, my friend. I call him my friend because I've read some of his material, listened to some of his material, and he's invested a lot. So I consider him to be a friend, because a friend helps you out. So he's helped me out a lot, and he said money is almost is pretty much as important as oxygen. I'm just paraphrasing there. It says money will go with anything you got, any outfit you got, money will go with it, which is true. So finances is an important aspect of life. So it's important that we learn and we're disciplined in areas as it relates to budgeting, savings, investments, our spending as well. It, there's a culture of buy now and pay later, but it's best that we pay now so that we can play later. So make the sacrifices that we need to make right now so that later on in life that we can start to reap from those sacrifices. So if you, particularly if you can't afford it, purchasing things that look impressive so that it looks good on the gram is not a good way to spend money. And this is also an area that I'm still working on, finances, like saving, investments and stuff like that. So you should be disciplined as it relates to finances. Health. Without good health, there's a limit to what you can do and how much of life you can actually enjoy. So it's imperative that you develop good, healthy practices. So health as it relates to your nutrition, what you're eating, within your budget, of course. Like there are various types of healthy foods. You don't need to buy all of them, but as long as you have like a balanced diet and a selection of those good foods in your diet, then that should be fine. So healthy nutrition, exercise, consistent exercise, not just one-off 3-hour workout, but doing it regularly. So less is best if you're just starting off, but consistency is key. So consistent exercise, water, lots of water, because apparently we're made of, our body's made up of a lot of water. So you're going to need to replenish because you're going to be losing water during the course of the day. And rest. So sleep and rest. So you might not be sleeping, but you need that time to just rest and recuperate and think. So those some of the areas as it relates to health. And your thoughts. So you are what you think, essentially. And this area can be a bit harder because it's hidden from the public view. However, the kind of thoughts that you think will ultimately affect the quality of life that you lead. Toxic thoughts will result in an unhappy life, and it can lead to diseases. Beautiful thoughts lead to happiness and contentment. So it's important that you are disciplined in the area of your thoughts life. And finally, words. We must be disciplined with our words. I wrote like a line a couple of years ago saying, "Sticks and stones may hurt my bones, but your words, they do more. They break my heart." So the words that you speak have the capacity to make, particularly wrong words, have the capacity to make a lasting impression on an individual for many years. So it's important that you're careful and you're thoughtful with your words, so you can make a positive impression on people that will follow them through their life, as opposed to using words wrongly and just breaking people's hearts left, right, and center because you're not thoughtful in what you're saying and how you're using your words. So use your words to build up rather than to tear down. So if we just explore the concept of punishment, punishment, like I said, is a penalty inflicted as retribution for an offense. In my case, my punishment was issued by God. In an educational setting, punishment could be instituted by the principal or the teacher. In a work setting, punishment could be inflicted by the your boss. So you could be called aside and reprimanded. It could result in a loss of your job or a downgrade in pay. So punishment can be instituted by legal bodies. So like in a family, in an educational setting, in a workplace. But sometimes life has a way of applying its own punishment. So for instance, where there's indiscipline as it relates to time. So if you fail to use your time wisely as it relates to personal development, studying, improving yourself, if you don't do those things, what will ultimately happen is when opportunities come, which they will come, you will not be prepared to actually maximize or even be considered for those opportunities. So opportunities will always present itself, but if you're not qualified, then you can't take advantage of those opportunities. So that in itself is a punishment because you lose out. Another aspect is finance. So if you fail to be disciplined as it relates to your finance, what that could result in is poverty, lack, and just a low standard of living, which will ultimately lead to unhappiness because money does answer a lot of things. It can't buy everything, but it can buy it can buy fair amounts of things. So to live a comfortable life, to be able to give back to society, you need finance. But if you're indisciplined in that area, that could result in lack and loss. If you're indisciplined in health, that could result in sickness, disease, poor mobility. It could affect your mind and your brain. So like if you're drinking too much, consuming too much alcohol, too much tobacco, things like that, too much sugar, these things will eventually have a knock-on effect on your health. And so indiscipline in those areas will result eventually in sickness and diseases and things like that. Indiscipline as it relates to thoughts could result in a warped mind and a lack of peace. So there are lots of people out there who have all the trappings of wealth and success, but they're unable to sleep because their thoughts, they think negative thoughts. Their thoughts are not healthy thoughts, and because their thoughts are toxic, they don't actually enjoy a good quality of life. They can buy the things that money can buy, but the things that are essential to their well-being, they lack those. So the quality of your thoughts is of the utmost importance. And if you're indisciplined as it relates to your words, that could result in broken relationships because eventually people will get fed up with hanging about with you if you're going to just use your words in a way that hurts them on a regular basis. So that could result in broken relationships with your spouse, broken relationships with your kids, broken relationships with work colleagues, broken relationships with family members. So your words can essentially tear down your entire life and the support system that you have around you. So it's important that you put in the time and to apply discipline to your words. So how do you become disciplined? So these are some of my tips. One of the ways to develop discipline is consider the benefits of being disciplined. Why should you work out? Why should you save? Why should you be careful with your words? So if you think about why you should work out, maybe think about the health benefits, increase of energy. If you're a father or a mother, it will probably extend your mobility so that you're able to spend time with the grandkids, playing with them and things like that. Why should you save? Because perhaps there are places that you want to see, There are things that you want to do in the community, you want places that you want, countries you want to travel to, toys that you want to buy, sports cars, massive houses. So consider what it is, consider what you want, and why you should save. Because if you pay now, you can play later. So it's not just going to be a life of just scrimping and saving and scrimping and saving. That scrimping and saving has a purpose, and you have a long time, like a long-term vision. So eventually you can buy things, and you could afford to live in the lap of luxury. But perhaps you're not there just right now. So it's important that you take an honest view as to where you are right now and live within those means, as opposed to trying to create a look, because the only person you're deceiving is yourself. Yeah, because when you go home, you know what your bank balance looks like. Why should you be careful with your words? Consider the impacts that you're having, and the impacts that you want to have. So consider the benefits of being disciplined. Then next tip is visualize the possible punishments that could occur if you fail to apply discipline. So perhaps if you fail to apply discipline in health, visualize yourself in a wheelchair or being bedbound, or housebound. If you fail to apply discipline in money, visualize yourself working well up into your 70s. Just visualize that and just think about what life could be like. Visualize being unable to pay your bills. Visualize not having a home. Visualize the possible consequences of of a lack of discipline as it relates to finances, as it relates to your words. You could visualize the relationships that you stand to lose if you carry on the way you possibly might be. So if you're someone who just uses words that tear down and attack and make people feel bad, you could have a think and just visualize not having those people in your life and just being pretty much alone. So visualize the consequences, the possible punishments that could occur if you carry on in the way that you're going. And then next step, decide to be disciplined. So everything starts with a decision. So it's from the inside. No one can make that decision for you. It's your decision to make. So you're the one who has to identify what area you might. I've given you 5 areas you might need to be disciplined in. Your relationship with your spouse. You might need to be disciplined in your parenting. So there are various areas. So you identify what areas you need to be disciplined in, and then make that decision. Don't try and attack it all at once. Just pick one and start off with that. So make that decision to be disciplined. And then finally, action. Take action. Do whatever it is. Identify what you need to do and do it. If you, just like me, fall into dodgy discipline whereby you fall off the bandwagon. So I fell off the bandwagon as it related to integrity at that tube station. Learn the lesson, and get back up and keep going. Okay, so those are my tips. Don't give up. Dodgy discipline is not the way you want to go. You want to go for proper discipline, because that's where the reward is. Thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to share this video with whomever you think needs to hear it. Go ahead and subscribe. Until next time, please do stay safe. Take it easy. Bye.